survey historian for the Arkansas Historic Preservation Program. Thank you for coming out, and welcome to the Sandwiching History Tour of Lake Nixon. I'd like to thank the staff of Lake Nixon and the Second Baptist Church downtown for allowing us to tour this facility today. The tour is worth 1 hour of HSW continuing education credit through the American Institute of Architects. Please see me after the tour if that's something you guys are needing. I'd like to introduce Rick Stanley, who is a facilities manager out here at Lake Nixon. We'll let Rick talk a little bit about what he's doing.
Great. Thank you all and welcome. It's just a pleasure to have you all out here. It's a thrill to be recognized like this. The property, the family, the history that we've had out here. I'm blessed to be here. I have to live out here, so y'all pity me. I have to wake up and look at this every day. So I guess we'll start with the present. This property is currently owned by Second Baptist Church downtown Little Rock. We've had the property, as Travis will tell you about, for 49 years this December when we bought it. Next summer will actually be the 50th anniversary of us running our summer day camp program out here. We've touched the lives of thousands and thousands of children, now adults, now grandparents, through the ministry of Second Baptist Church out here. So we're thrilled to still have that legacy moving forward. As I say, we have anywhere from 400 to 500 children out here for 9 weeks during the summertime, and that's been going on since 1969 of June. We've just started recently this year, a preschool program out here. You'll notice over here what used to be one of the old lodging. We've now converted that into a preschool program that next year is going to be open year-round. Next year also we're going to be opening a small middle school camp during the summertime so that we have a place for the kids that graduate out of our summer program in elementary school to continue out here for at least a couple more years through the middle school program. So, once again, welcome. I'm going to turn it back over to Travis. Thank you all for being here, and sure appreciate you all getting to come out and get to see what we love. Yes, ma'am.
One quick question. Are you ever going to have it open for any period of time for public to come out here and enjoy it like we used to?
No, ma'am. It's probably been about 9 years now since we did that. No, we are open and available to groups. We do many birthday parties, church groups, company picnics and such. So we will book it on weekends, during the week when the camp's not on, for groups that want to come out. But as far as for just admittance to come in on a daily basis, no, ma'am, we won't do that. Good question, though. Thank you. Any other questions?
Can you tell us why?
Well, okay, we're owned by a church. Funds are very tight. To have a place like this open on a weekend, for instance, we'd have to have 4 or 5 lifeguards, people in a snack shack and such, and if only 3 people come out. So I don't want it to sound like just a business or finances, but it's a huge upkeep to have a property like this open to the public, and the liability and all of that with groups. They kind of help to self-monitor themselves, which is good.
Do they get to get in the lake?
Oh, yes, that is a big part. Swimming and fishing are the 2 big hit items out here. When it's 105 degrees, that lake feels really nice. So. Yes, ma'am. Well, I live right here on the back of the hill.
I always saw Indian people building their house so much.
Yeah, Travis is going to talk about that here in a little bit, and kind of how we acquired the property. So, thank you all. Any other questions? Anything I can help you with?
Thank you, Rick. Well, you guys are standing on or around a beautiful 34-acre lake, built on the rolling hills of the trees, roughly 13 miles from downtown Little Rock. Though this site has a lot of history for the dances, which you guys can all acquaint to, swimming out in the lake, and that infamous jukebox, wherever it may rest at this point, has had lots of great stories. Also, the site offers a remarkable contrast, though, to the wonderful times. There is a very definite dark time out here at Lake Nixon during 1966 that brought about a very different era of change out here at Lake Nixon. Lake Nixon offers that great contrast to the other civil rights sites found throughout Little Rock. due to its rural setting and its influence of a court case from the United States Supreme Court. This site has 15 contributing and 10 non-contributing resources located throughout, but the most significant aspect of this site is not its buildings or its playground, but it is the lake and the activities within the lake and Lake Nixon itself. The lake is named after Oscar Nixon, who hand-dug this lake for his own personal enjoyment between 1946 and roughly 1949. We are lucky enough to have members of the Nixon family here today. So any of my mistakes, I want to pass off to you guys and say, please help me fix them. However, as the pond was stocked with fish and other locals from around the area continued to ask for fishing and swimming in the pond, it was at this time Mr. Nixon eventually found it permissible. The lake was open for the public for swimming around the summer of 1949, which was an extremely mild summer that year, with temperatures only topping out about 93 degrees in August. Which for Arkansas, we'll take 93 degrees in August. At this time, Oscar decided to open the pond for be an active swimming hole with ice beverages and music from that infamous jukebox. It ended up having hundreds of people show up on the weekends for that year. It was only a couple years later, by 1952, Mr. Nixon was advertising and congratulating the local high school seniors in their local high school yearbooks. When talking to anyone, and you guys are all part of that, that has spent time out here at Lake Nixon over the years, everybody talks about the infamous dance floor, first dates, the jukebox, learning to swim, and the overall great experience that everybody's had out here. Everybody has those great memories while growing up and taking part of the fun activities out here, including the Nixons themselves, who had a party barge out here by the name of Tiki. And if you go back to a lot of their activities, at least from certain Nixon family members said there was a contest at one point where they were skiing on the lake in business suits to see who could not get their business suits wet. And I don't want to talk about it a whole lot. What I'm going to do is also make this more of a reunion. Let's let you guys talk about your experiences here for, roughly 5-10 minutes to talk about your experiences out here. Anybody have any great experiences they want to share with the rest of the folks? Sure.
Back in the early 60s, there were 4-H activities out here. I remember the barbecue time. We would
Barbecues out here in the
barbecue
60s.
chickens. Mm-hmm.
Anybody else want to share their great activities? Sure.
I bring my children out here frequently when they were just back in the mid to late 70s.
Wow. Back when Lake Nixon, back when the Second Baptist Church had it.
Yeah, I was out here when I was quite young, up in the teens, up to in the 1950s. And we would come out here for a day. It was like to the country or something when we left from the city where I live, and we came out here. And I remember that rock bridge there. I don't know, it just fascinated me. Maybe you could tell us something about it. But we would come over, and I liked it because we had gone other places for a beach type experience, and there never was any trees for shade. So Lake Nixon had the trees out there that we could get the shade as well as we could get the sun. And that little slide, that's been there forever. And I remember when I took little enough and I went down there, the water was about ankle deep right there. And then I graduated to the big slide over here, and it got to be about waist deep. And then over beyond, like at the end of the sandbar, there was the deep water. There used to be a lifeguard stand there, and we could jump in and swim there. And this is one kind of unpleasant experience, but we were out here one day when one of our best friends drowned in the lake, and that was kind of a sad experience. But we kept coming back, and it was, like I said, it was just a beautiful. The best of everything. At one time, they had little paddle boats we could rent to go around out there. So that's some of my stuff.
The paddle boats are still here. They're over there. They were going to try and get them in the water. I don't know if they got there or not. There are paddle boats again.
Oh, okay.
And we got one of the family members here. We got Betty. They grew up out here. Show.
Yes, I was about 23 years old, somewhere along there when we opened up. And the first summer was cool. I remember the very first week or so we opened, and of course there were very few people here. But it was cool summer. But then it became normal, and it grew, and it grew, and it grew. On the a lot of work. In the concession stand, we just had one of those little Coke boxes that had water in it. So we iced up 2 big tubs. Faster you could get them in the tub, they'd come out. I tell you, we worked ourselves to death. Now, on the death of the little girl that drowned, the lifeguard is here. The first one we had. Where's R.L.? He's right there. R.L. That little girl just went down and her parents told her she had a heart condition or something was wrong with her. She had a heart condition or some reason. They didn't blame it on the guards. She had some kind of condition that I think it was epilepsy. Oh, something that I can't really remember what it was. But the other drowning we had, the man had made a boat, overloaded it, went down here, the motor went off, and the boat went down. And well, not getting sank, but R.L. left this sand down here and swam down there and saved a 2-year-old boy. I think he's retired from the Air Force. He was I could go on and I'll tell you really, but Oscar Nixon, I wish all of you could have known. He was, he loved people, and people loved him. He was a generous man. Those neighborhood kids would come over, and he never charged them. They always got them free. I can remember one, 2 little neighbor children would come in with their pretty collar dogs over the hill. So many memories in this place. We built a little house across the street, Donna and I. My husband was a basketball coach. And we started out at Drill P and ended up at UCA. Went through Central and all that. Anyway, what else can I say? Oh, I have a box of pictures. They're postcard pictures that the lake with a lot of people in it. Where is that box?
It's right up here.
Okay, any of you that would like to have any of those, or one of the pictures, you're sure welcome to them. I've been wondering what I was going to do with them. But you know, I'm 91. I need some house. I get rid of things. So I go through closet, everything. Get rid of. Anyway, where are you going to put those cards so they can get a card?
Right over there. We'll put them over there for everybody once we start when we finish the program.
Okay. Thank
Well,
you.
thank you, Ms. Vincent. And that's the part of these tours that I really love. It's getting everybody else's experience and sort of filling in that narrative that we don't have. And that's the great part about these Sandwich and History tours, getting everybody out here to experience that. Oscar Nixon and his family would continue to operate Lake Nixon and a small grocery store out near the Ferndale area until 1962, when due to health issues, he sold the property to Ewell Paul Jr. Ewell Paul was born and raised in California, where he met his first wife, Irene, and it's through her family, was also from the Little Rock area. By 1961 and 1962, they decided to move from California back to Little Rock to be closer to Irene's family. Upon moving to Little Rock, the couple purchased Lake Nixon from Oscar. But not everyone was able to have the same fun experiences that you all had out here over those summers. The summer of 1966 was extremely hot, with 21 days above 100 degrees. And that was in Oklahoma. There was 6 days straight of over 100 degrees in Memphis, and we fell in between those two, so roughly 10. Hot summer, causing the public to gather at cool locations like Lake Nixon, swimming pools across the area. The significance of this property, or at least from a National Register standpoint, begins July 10th, 1966, when two African-American girls, a Miss Doris Daniel and a Miss Rosalind Kyles, tried to gain access to Lake Nixon and both Spring Lake. They were told that they were private clubs and that memberships were full and no new members were going to be admitted. With their entrance denied at both lakes and feeling discriminated against, both women filed suit against the lakes. The lawsuit alleged that Lake Nixon and Spring Lake clubs were operating in violation of one of the four types of public accommodations covered under the Civil Rights Act of 1964. During testimony, Ewell Paul Jr. stated that through his attorney that he excluded, quote, Negroes because they would lose most of their white customers if they did. Paul also stated that Lake Nixon was made a private club in 1964 to exclude undesirables such as drunks and disorderly white patrons. During testimony by J.A. Culberson, who was the owner of Spring Lake, which if you follow the lake, follow the road on up, Spring Lake is up there, that he also would lose most of his white patrons, saying that one day would come when an integrated facility could be operated for a profit. Upon getting to the thoughts on the case and after reflecting on the arguments presented, Judge Hensley stated that he did not believe that the claims that the lakes were a private entity or a private club. He notes that the lakes were not within the terms or any rational definition of a private club, which might be formulated in the context of exemption covered in the Civil Rights Act of 1964. However, after making that statement, that neither of the lakes or clubs were actually functioning as private clubs, Hensley went on to state that even with the lack of the clubs active as private clubs, the lakes were free to bar Negroes because they were not included among the businesses in the Act's ban on discrimination. The attorney for the two girls, who is John Walker, who is now Representative John Walker, he went on to appeal the ruling to the 8th Circuit Court of Appeals in St. Louis, Missouri. While dropping Spring Lake and the owner, C.A. Culberson, from the lawsuit, as I talked to him, he stated that the Interstate Commerce Clause, which they were trying to file the suit under, was already being stretched to the limit, and he didn't want to try to make it that way, and that they would push that limit a little further. Walker also felt that Spring Lake was willing to re-examine the policies and allow African Americans into Spring Lake to swim. The appeal by Walker was later accepted by the 8th Circuit Court of Appeals and was finally heard in St. Louis May 3rd, 1968. Many of the same arguments were made, and it was brought back up to the Court of Appeals. Upon hearing the case, the judges of the 8th Circuit Court of Appeals, it was a Judge Osterhout, Judge McAfee, and a Judge Haney, affirmed the decision of the District Court. The only dissenting opinion was written by Judge Haney, who wrote, "In my view, the judgment of the District Court cannot be upheld." Following the decision of the 8th Circuit Court of Appeals, there was another appeal made to the Supreme Court. While waiting to hear from the U.S. Supreme Court whether they would hear the case, it is stated that Ewell Paul Jr. began feeling that the case, if accepted, would probably not go in his favor. At the same time the court case was circulating the U.S. Supreme Court system, the Second Baptist Church of Little Rock, led by Pastor Dale Cowling, was beginning to look for locations to hold a day camp provided by the Second Baptist Church. Dr. Cowling believed that one of the greatest needs in Little Rock was a place for children of working mothers to have a safe, fun place to spend their summers. The church began actively looking for a location near Central Arkansas, for working mothers needing a safe place for the young children to stay while they worked. It was widely known, as you all have an understanding of, at this time that Lake Nixon was the place to go and congregate in the late 1950s. However, acquiring Lake Nixon would probably be outside the realm of the church due to the cost and the size of the lake. Yet it was also widely known at the time that the owners of Lake Nixon, Ewell Paul Jr. and his wife, were under pressure to sell the lake following the ongoing lawsuit. Upon sitting down with Mr. and Mrs. Paul Jr., Dr. Collins shared his vision for what he thought of the location for children and families as a swimming and recreation area. It is with this time that Dr. Collins simply asked what price the Pauls wanted for this site, to which Paul stated $210,000. According to the church history, Dr. Collins responded by saying, we will pay you $210,000 in these terms. $10,000 a year for 21 years. The first payment will be after they operated the site for 1 year, and with no interest for the first 10 years. To which Ewell Paul responded, "Preacher, that's the craziest deal I've ever heard." Pray on it and call him by 5 p.m. the next day. It is stated that he did not call by 5, but that inevitably he called Dr. Colling and the other members of the church by 5:30. Still, how would the church pay for this vast expenditure? And how would Dr. Colling put together Inevitably, Dr. Conley put together 10 men who would co-sign to take responsibility of the lake for $20,000 each. And there's a whole backstory into those 10 guys. Really great. In the meantime, the case did get a boost from the Department of Justice. They entered the case as a, quote, friend of the court on behalf of Doris Daniel and Rosalind Kyle. Like the previous arguments made in the earlier cases in the trial, the Justice Department took the argument that importing the jukeboxes, the records, the paddle boats that everybody talks about, they were serving out-of-state travelers from the snack bar, and it forbid them from discriminating under the Civil Rights Act of 1964. But it also spurred a new argument that was not in there, stating that by paying the 25-cent entrance fee, which I would love to have 25-cent entrance fee, white members of the general public were allowed to make contracts, which 25 cents would be the contract, giving them the right to enter and use Lake Nixon facilities. Since the, quote, Negroes were denied that right under the 1866 Civil Rights Act, the law was violated. With arguments made to the Supreme Court, finally, March 24th and 25th of 1969, the Supreme Court finally gave the opinion on June 2nd of 1969. By a ruling of 7-1, the United States Supreme Court ruled that a privately owned recreation area that offered swimming, picnicking, and similar facilities for white members could not exclude Negroes. The decision was handed out by Judge William A. Brennan, Jr., with the only dissension going to a Hugo J. Black. As part of the ruling, the justices felt that the lake was in fact a public accommodation, subject to Title II of the 1964 law, based on several grounds that were argued that the snack bar offered services to interstate travelers, the fact that the club sought broad patronage through advertising as far as the Air Force Base during that time, and through their advertising in the place of entertainment. Following the outcome of the Daniel V. Paul case, which is what is officially known as, both the Second Baptist Church and the outreach ministry of the arm, known as Lake Nixon, set out a path for inclusion for the newly formed day camp, which would promote a ministry to the public families and group recreation site. The day camp would open in the summer of 1969, as Rick talked about, with 89 enrollees, and it has continued to grow since. Today, the Lake Nixon Day Camp enrolls children between the ages of kindergarten and 6th grade, and the Lake Nixon Outdoor Center welcomes all students of all ages to the site. Today, feel free to explore the grounds and the lake and take pictures of the beautiful scenery. Thank you again for coming, and please join us for our next Sandwiching the History Tour at the Maumelle Ordnance Works Bunker number 4 at 4 Willowstein Drive in Maumelle on Friday, June 1st. Also, please join us Saturday, May 12th at 11 o'clock for our walk-through history tour of downtown Beebe. Again, thank you, and have a great weekend.